Hello, you find me having a cuppa and a scone, but not just any scone. This is a Mark Causa rhubarb and ginger scone. And here's Mark to tell us more about it.
Hi there, I'm Mark and welcome to Lent Recipe 4. The recipe this week that I'm going to show you how to do is rhubarb and ginger scones. The rhubarb and ginger scones are a favourite of mine, and I was going to say created this recipe during lockdown. The reason it was created was basically I ran out of self-raising flour and I used some beremeal flour, and I discovered that made the scones a wee bit crispier and a better taste. So the dry ingredients are 350 grams of self-raising flour and 3 tablespoons of sugar. 100 grams of beremeal flour, and as I kind of said earlier, this is a kind of Orkney ingredient. Beremeal is a barley grain and it is milled in Bursey, and you can get that in any of the local shops here in Kirkwall. And if you're not from Kirkwall and you're watching it from somewhere else, you can get it online and you just look up Baronet Mill and you can get the beremeal. Also within that there is a tablespoon of bicarbonate soda, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon of bicarbonate soda and a teaspoon of baking powder, and that's because the beremeal is no rising agent in it, so you need that to help the scones rise. So that's the dry ingredients. You put them in and then you put in 80 grams of butter. I usually ding it in the microwave for 20 seconds to make it a wee bit softer, but you put that into the dry ingredients and then you use your hands. I was going to say, what you're doing is mixing the flour or rubbing the flour and the butter together to kind of create breadcrumbs. I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be really fine. Apparently some folk grate the butter and use it kind of partly frozen because it apparently creates a better mix. But I'm just gently rubbing that together to get out the big lumps. Apparently it's good as well to have cold hands for this, similar to pastry I would think. So just bringing that together, that's what it kind of looks like, kind of bready crumbs. Create a well. I'm just going to use my hands I think because they're dirty anyway, and it's now about using the wet ingredients. So you put in 220 millilitres of milk, and it's Orkney milk, it being local. There is 3 tablespoons of rhubarb, and actually what I'm going to do is kind of keep 1 tablespoon out and put the rest in. I was going to say, you leave that tablespoon for decoration at the end. And then we've got 4 balls of ginger, stem ginger. I buy it in the syrup, and again, buy it locally, at the local shop, Shearers, which is definitely local because it's only 189 steps away from the house. So we put in the stem ginger, so you've cut it into wee cubes. Put in as much as you like because I was going to say some people like it kind of more spicy than others. And then just again bring the mixture together. As I've kind of said in the recipe, to do as little mixing as possible, but what you're wanting to do is get this into a kind of circular round circular piece of dough with all mixing together. Your hands like a monster. you can use a spatula or use the spoon, but once you've got it, I was going to say totally mixed, trying to do as little movement actually as possible. Big sticky clumpy hands. Then what I'm going to do is bring it together into that kind of circular thing. I'm going to wash my hands quickly. Hopefully Lynn will keep showing you the dough. And then I'm going to flour the surface of the table. Again, lots of people use wee cutters to cut out their scones, and they give it that kind of perfect delia look. I actually just like, I was going to say, I quite like a slab of scone. So I kind of bring that together and a kind of a circle, and then what I do is get a knife and cut it into segments. So just cutting it into 6 segments you do. You can make 8, depends what size you want. I'll look at the thickness of it, it's about 3 centimetres. And then what I then do is I put a wee bit of the rhubarb which was left over on top of each bit. And then, I was going to say, with a pastry brush, sprinkle a wee bit of milk over it. That helps in the oven to brown the scones. There's not a lot of milk there. I then transfer the scones onto a baking parchment and a baking tray, and then I put it in the oven. The oven is set at 200 degrees Celsius, and I've got a fan assisted oven, so that indicates it's a bit hotter. A normal oven, it's about 220 degrees Celsius. And so we put this on the baking tray, put it in the oven, and then we bake it for 12 to 15 minutes. Once we're finished, when we hear the alarm for it to come out, what I do is normally just test it with a skewer, put the skewer in, and if it comes out clean, the scones are ready. I was going to say, I've put a photograph of scones that I've made earlier in true Blue Peter fashion, so they can be seen in the recipe card that goes along with the video. The last thing I want to say is just the importance of, certainly during lockdown in the last year, has been buying local stuff. Beremeal certainly comes from Orkney, but we're very fortunate and have lots of other produce as well. The milk is local, the butter is local, and the rhubarb is local. It's straight out of the garden. So what I'd say to you is, enjoy buying local and please enjoy the recipe. Thanks.
Well, what a super video Mark made for us. And of course, in amongst all the lovely local ingredients, the Orkney milk, the beremeal, the rhubarb from his garden, there was sugar. And sugar is the ingredient from this recipe that we can look to buy from fair trade. And the Co-op are great on fair trade sugar. Lidl, some of their sugars are, and this dark brown sugar is, for sure. But I'm not sure about their rank and file granulated and caster sugar, so I will have to check that. But of course, Tate and Lyle have now gone fair trade. It's interesting to see that they've got the British logo on there. And as we move towards Easter time and our Easter baking, Please do look out for fair trade sugar, because sugar comes from some of the poorest countries in the world. Of course, there is sugar beet, and that can be grown in the UK, and there is a Silver Spoon sugar beet factory down, I think it's in Essex or just on the Suffolk border. So you can be supporting British farmers. I must say I'm a bit confused about Tate and Lyle and their icing sugar. Both these packs have got a 2023 best before date on them. This one is fair trade and this one isn't, so that's something that we'll have to keep an eye out for. But thank you, Mark, for a wonderful recipe. I actually made 16 scones, and look, there's 5 left, but I haven't eaten them all. I've given quite a few away, and especially to Helen, who supplied the rhubarb. So thank you, Mark. Please look out for fair trade sugar, and we'll see you again next week.